Visualization is often treated as a motivational tool, something you use to imagine success, positive outcomes, or a better future. But that is a limited use of it, because visualization is not just imagination. It is a way of training your brain. When you vividly picture an action, your brain activates many of the same neural pathways as if you were actually doing it. Motor patterns, emotional responses, and behavioral sequences begin to simulate the experience. This is known as mental rehearsal, and it is used in performance, skill development, and behavior change. Because the brain does not fully separate imagined experience from real experience when the detail is strong enough. That is what makes it useful. The same principle applies to stress and behavior. Because your responses are not random. They are patterns that have been repeated over time. If a situation consistently triggers stress, it is usually because your brain has learned to respond in a certain way. That response becomes automatic, fast, reactive, and difficult to interrupt in the moment. Visualization gives you a way to work on that pattern before it happens. Instead of waiting for the situation and reacting automatically, you rehearse a different response in advance. You start by choosing a specific situation. Not something vague, but something real that you actually face. A moment where you usually lose focus, become overwhelmed, or react in a way you do not want. Then, you build the scene clearly. The environment, the timing, the trigger, and the point where your usual reaction would begin. This level of detail matters, because the more realistic the scenario feels, the more accurately your brain can rehearse it. But this is where most people go wrong. They remove the difficulty. They imagine everything going smoothly. No pressure, no resistance. That does not prepare you for reality. Because real situations include discomfort, distraction, pressure, and uncertainty. Effective visualization includes those elements. You keep the challenge in the scene, and then you rehearse how you respond to it. You see yourself noticing the trigger, holding your position, staying controlled instead of reacting automatically. You follow the response all the way through, not just the outcome, but the behavior that leads to it. This is where the rewiring starts to happen, because you are no longer reinforcing the old pattern. You are building a new one. And repetition is what makes it stick. One session will not change anything, because your current responses have been repeated many times. Visualization works when it becomes consistent. Short, focused rehearsals done regularly. Not long sessions, but repeat exposure to the same controlled response. Over time, something shifts. The new response becomes more familiar, more accessible, and easier to follow when the real situation appears. This is where it connects directly to stress, because stress responses are often automatic. They happen before you have time to think clearly. Visualization gives you a way to prepare for that moment in advance. So when the trigger appears, you are not relying on willpower alone. You are following something your brain has already practiced. That reduces hesitation, reduces reactivity, and increases control. Not because the situation is easier, but because your response is more stable. That is the difference. You move from reacting automatically to responding deliberately. And that is where real change happens.